Hi guys, it's Mikefield here. Today we'll talk about fighting the Cultists in Darkest Dungeon 2. And those are those elite enemies that you will have to deal with at some point in your run, because you need to kill at least 3 packs of those in order to reach the final boss, and honestly, in order to have decent items, you'll probably need to fight a couple extra packs of those. And they are ridiculously difficult. They can really destroy you very easily if you are not paying attention. So in this video I'll tell you all you need to know as to how to fight them. So there are a few very important things about the Cultists specifically there are a few tricks basically that you need to know. So before we kind of continue the content, please remember to follow me on Twitch, like and subscribe on YouTube, and also let me know what you think in the comments below. This is very important to me specifically because you will allow me to basically develop my content further. So as we go into the video, as you guys can see, we are in the mountain area. We're fighting one of those bigger packs of cultists, and there are also a few mechanics that I'd like to talk to you about, first of all. So we basically have 4 cultist monsters, okay? We have the so-called Deacon, who is the big daddy with an axe. We have the Cardinal, who is the big daddy with big arms. And we have the Evangelist, who is the slim daddy with swords, whom you just are attacking. And then finally there is a Cherub, who is the small dude with the scroll. They are ridiculously difficult to fight, and you just need to have a decent list of priorities as to what you're supposed to be doing against them. So first of all, I think it's very important for your party to have access to at least 1 or 2 blinds. Blinds are those kind of negative tokens that you can apply to enemy monsters, and they will mean that the monsters will be missing, right? They have 50% chance to miss their attack, which is really, really important because this basically can deny a lot of those heavy damage hits that will eventually come down. Now, I think that's the biggest tip I can give you, honestly. If you have a blind available, such as, for instance, your runaway is blind, you should probably be using that as much as you can. Honestly, the blinding powder of the PD as well is a very useful ability here too. So generally speaking, using blind and also applying some dodge across the board to your party. If you can have some dodges from your characters, if you have access to dodge, then you should probably just use those abilities as well in order to stay alive as long as possible. So let's talk about the enemies, okay? I think the biggest threat is going to be the Evangelist. The Evangelist has basically a buff that allows them to gain 100% critical strike chance. And in order to remove that, you have, I think there's a single ability in the game that can just straight up remove this particular buff, and this is Bellow of the MAA. So if you're running MAA, you should probably just consider using that Bellow in order to get rid of those annoying pesky stacks. Another ability that you can use is, I think, the Highwayman has the ability to remove all the positive tokens from an enemy, which is also very, very useful. But that takes a few hero mastery levels in order to unlock that, so it's going to be quite a threat. Now let's talk about the priorities then, because some of those monsters are going to be way harder to kill than the others. I think the Cherubs, since they are mostly just a nuisance, should be left until the last, which goes against what I'm doing here in this video, because I killed the Cherub first. He was just exposed and I figured, okay, I'm just going to go for it. Generally speaking, I think you should try to focus the Evangelist first, if you can, because they have the biggest damage potential. They apply really, really annoying bleeds, and generally speaking, they just get a lot of dodge from buffs. So actually, as long as you are able to apply a decent amount of damage and pressure on them, you'll be having a way easier time. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, if you have those 2 big daddies, so if you're dealing with the Deacon or you're dealing with the Cardinal, I think it's paramount that you keep them blinded. So we have a few options as to how to do this. I think just blinding them with the runaway and just keeping them blinded throughout the encounter is going to give you a lot of advantages coming into those battles. Because that means that you can just kind of slowly wear them down and apply the DOTs, because all those monsters, by the way, are quite vulnerable to the DOTs, and they can be disposed of very easily this way. So that's quite an important tip. Also, the Cherubs will be applying some stress. So having the MAA use the bolster every now and then, or having your PD use their buff when it's upgraded every now and then is also a good idea to just kind of deal with that stress as you go forward. So Cultists are going to become a bit easier to deal with this way. Obviously, there are going to be different packs. So for instance, in this fight over here, you can see that we are fighting the Cardinal and the Deacon at the same time, which obviously is going to be quite a threat. You can see that, okay, I want to kind of go to the beginning of the video here, because it's quite important. So we'll go with the runaway here. So that's the thing that you're supposed to really do here. So you have the ability to use the smoke screen, and level 2 smoke screen actually applies double blind, and it also applies the combo on that enemy. So you can actually use your abilities to combo on them. This is very, very useful overall, and I think it just allows you to get a lot of a headway into the fight, because as I said, blinds are going to be really, really good overall. As you can see here, I'm just kind of applying the combo to get the free crit on the monster, and I'm just going to try to pressure it down as soon as I can. Ounce of Prevention from the PD, as you can see over here, is actually going to give me that stress removal that I desperately need to stay on low stress. And you can see that those monsters have a real huge amount of HP. So just kind of dealing with them this way, just kind of keeping them blinded and just kind of spiking at least one of them down as soon as possible is just going to give you a decent amount of pressure in those fights. As you can see, my Man at Arms actually has Retribution. That's another very useful ability, because those mobs have a lot of different abilities, and if you can kind of choose a target for those attacks, it's just going to make your life way easier, right? MAA has a lot of HP, and because HP heals in this game are actually based on percentages, not on flat values, the more HP you have, the easier you become to heal, basically, because you're healing that character for more HP effectively. So basically keeping, one of your characters focused is going to be a very, very big deal. As you can see, the misses as well are going to allow you to, survive a bit longer. And since, Riposte on the MAA also taunts enemies, you can just kind of get all the focus on yourself this way, which is particularly useful, right? So having that one solid dedicated tank that you just kind of use to riposte and just kind of soak up the damage is going to be huge. Obviously, if you don't have access to riposte, that is going to be a little bit more sketchy, and you might actually need to blind a little bit more perhaps, right? So that's very, very important actually for you to kind of keep those blinds coming and to keep the pressure coming as well, because as you kind of go into those bigger encounters, like, the ones in the mountain area, this will just come up huge. Generally speaking, I think that as those mobs are very weak to DOTs as well, you will have a very good time if you have decent DOT party on your hands. As you can see, my characters over here are heavily DOT based. So we have the Runaway, the Grave Robber, and the PD, right? And they apply a lot of pressure in terms of the debuffs, right? So they can actually apply a lot of those DOTs, and they generally speaking will just have a very nice impact on the fight. I think that's basically the easiest way of fighting those mobs, because some of them can apply a buff, for instance. So the Deacon can apply a buff that gives him a resistance to melee attacks, which is obviously very annoying because he will be taking 50% damage less from melee. And this means that obviously having that sort of DOT going is just a very, very nice thing to have, right? The Colonel, as you just saw, can apply this massive set of debuffs. He just kind of throws this huge AoE across the party. It applies the vulnerability to characters, which you can, by the way, remove it with MAA's Bolster, which is big as well, because this means that you can negate that. And also Bolster does remove stress at the same time, so Bolster is a huge, huge, huge upgrade for your party if you can level it with the Mastery, so that's also quite big. And then obviously this can also stun your characters, okay? So having some stun resistance, if you think you're going to go against the Cardinal, is also quite big. So if you are coming into those Cultist encounters, having that is going to be pretty important overall. So as you can see, I think I'm disposing of those monsters quite easily, and this is because specifically I have that particular strategy taken here, and this allows me to really wreak havoc in the enemy lines. As you can see, this Ounce of Prevention is going to once again be used here, and I can really remove a lot, actually go for healing here. So that's kind of the trick here, okay? So dealing with the Cultists is basically just going to boil down to having an MAA, I think. I think MAA is a huge part of your success, because the Bolster, the Bellow, right, are very big abilities overall, and they can just kind of give you a very decent fighting chance. And again, the Retribution is going to also contribute quite a bit. Then another thing about your kind of fights, I guess, is that you should probably have some reliable stress healer, such as the PD, such as the Jester, or such as the MAA. The problem with the Jester, of course, is that he requires the character to be above 50% stress to be able to stress heal, so maybe not the best choice overall. I think the PD is optimally set up to succeed here. I think, guys, this is basically it as far as the stuff I really want to tell you. So just to recap, right, just be ready for a lot of bolsters here. So having the MA is very important if you want to succeed, I think. MA is almost indispensable in those fights, I think. And then just have, just be patient, just use the blinds instead of just kind of blindly going to the fights and just kind of focusing, trying to kind of just do straight up damage, because that's just not going to work. And have straight up priorities. I think Evangelists should, generally speaking, die first, especially in those kind of bigger packs when you have 2 Evangelists and 2 Cherubs, right? I think that's really important for you to actually fight that way. And from there, you obviously have a couple of other choices. depending on what your kind of selection of characters is. But generally speaking, keeping the blinds going and keeping the DOTs going is definitely going to pave your way to success in those fights. So this is it for this video, guys. Thank you for watching, and remember to like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch as well. I also would like to ask you to perhaps become members of my channel. It takes $3 a month. It's not that much. I get most of that money as well. So I do encourage you to become members. The link is down below in the description. And you also have a button, I think, below the video that allows you to become a member, so to join the channel, in other words. This being said, see you in the next episode, where we'll be talking about fighting the final boss of this first part of Darkest Dungeon 2.